During a routine overnight experiment at Skinwalker Ranch, multiple cameras were rolling live. Not recreations, not reenactments, not dramatic television footage shot for entertainment purposes. Real-time surveillance capturing whatever moved through the monitored zone in complete darkness. This was not a planned test designed to provoke phenomena, not a scheduled experiment where researchers expected something to happen, and absolutely not something the team was prepared for or had protocols in place to handle. Something appeared inside the secure perimeter that night, something that triggered multiple sensors simultaneously, something that caused an immediate halt in all ongoing operations. The creature, entity, or unknown biological presence appeared for less than 30 seconds, long enough to be captured on camera from multiple angles, long enough to trigger alarm systems throughout the facility, long enough to make seasoned researchers, people who've spent years investigating unexplained phenomena, go completely silent. Skinwalker Ranch operates under constant surveillance that never stops, never sleeps, never takes a break. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, sophisticated monitoring systems track every single inch of the 512-acre property. Thermal imaging cameras detect heat signatures from anything warmer than the ambient environment. Motion sensors register movement down to the smallest animals, sensitive enough to detect rabbits and ground squirrels. Ground-penetrating radar maps subsurface activity looking for underground anomalies. Night vision towers provide overlapping coverage of the entire perimeter, eliminating blind spots. This isn't some weekend paranormal investigation team with handheld cameras and consumer equipment. This is a multi-million-dollar scientific operation funded by serious investors who demand results. Every system has redundancy. Every camera has backup power. Every sensor cross-references with other sensors to eliminate false positives and equipment errors. Unlike paranormal television shows that investigate locations for a few hours, then pack up their equipment and leave, Skinwalker Ranch experiments run continuously without interruption. Live camera feeds stream directly to a monitoring trailer where trained technicians watch screens in real time, day and night. Every alert gets logged with timestamps and sensor data. Every anomaly gets documented with multiple forms of evidence. Every sensor trigger gets cross-referenced with multiple independent systems to verify authenticity. The ranch operates on the fundamental principle that if something appears anywhere on the property, it will be recorded from more than one angle. Multiple cameras positioned at different elevations and distances. Multiple sensor types detecting different aspects of the same event. Multiple verification points ensuring that what's captured is real and measurable. Which means when something appears on these systems, when multiple sensors trigger simultaneously showing the same phenomenon, there's absolutely no room for equipment error, user mistake, or misidentification. It happened during late-night hours when minimal staff was present on the property. Just essential personnel monitoring standard surveillance systems from the command center. Nothing unusual had been scheduled for that evening. No experiments were actively running that would explain strange readings. No deliberate provocation of phenomena. Just routine observation of a property that's proven time and time again to be anything but routine. Then, the alerts started coming in. Motion sensors detecting movement in a specific sector, but thermal cameras showing no corresponding heat signature in that location. Then, thermal imaging picking up heat where nothing visible appeared on standard cameras. Audio sensors spiking with frequencies that had no identifiable source in the known animal database. The technicians monitoring the feeds initially assumed wildlife. A deer wandering near the perimeter fence looking for water. Maybe a coyote hunting for rabbits in the brush. Equipment errors happen even with the best technology. Environmental interference from weather patterns or unusual atmospheric conditions can trigger false readings on sensitive instruments. Standard operating procedure is to review the footage systematically, identify the source of the anomaly, log it in the database with explanatory notes, and continue monitoring for additional activity. But this time was fundamentally different from routine false alarms. One of the fixed position cameras positioned near the tree line captured movement that didn't match any known animal native to the Utah region. The shape moved wrong, biomechanics that didn't fit any cataloged species. The behavior patterns were wrong, actions that violated known wildlife psychology. Everything about what appeared on that screen violated the technicians' expectations of normal wildlife activity. And when they replayed the footage footage. When they watched it again in slow motion, analyzing every frame, the realization hit them like physical impact. That wasn't a coyote. That wasn't a deer or elk. That wasn't anything they could easily identify or explain away. The footage shows a silhouette near the tree line at the property's eastern perimeter. Dark form against darker background of night vegetation. Movement that appears upright initially, human-like in posture and stance, suggesting bipedal locomotion. Then suddenly, without transition or awkward adjustment, it drops low to the ground, moving on all fours with fluid coordination that suggests this is natural for it. The head movement is what captures immediate attention and creates unease. Deliberate scanning motion, purposeful examination of the area, looking in specific directions as if searching for something particular or assessing its environment with intelligence. The timestamp is clearly visible in the corner of the frame. No jump cuts or editing transitions. No manipulation of the footage. Just continuous recording from a fixed position camera that had been running for hours before this moment and continued running for hours afterward. The tracking data shows the camera never moved, never panned, never zoomed. This is exactly what the lens captured. For approximately 23 seconds, the figure remains partially visible on camera, moving between areas of cover, using vegetation and terrain features strategically, pausing to look in specific directions with what appears to be deliberate observation. And then, according to the technicians who watched this event happen live in real time, the creature turns its head directly toward the camera position, as if it knows exactly where the surveillance equipment is located, as if it's aware of being observed and has identified the source of observation. It holds that position for 3 full seconds, long enough for the operators to realize they're not just watching something, they're being watched back by something that understands it's under surveillance. Then it moves behind brush in one fluid motion and disappears from view. No sound captured on the directional microphones. No breaking branches or rustling leaves. No footsteps registering on the ground-level audio sensors. Just there one moment, visible and present, then gone the next. The monitoring room reportedly went completely silent as the technicians processed what they just witnessed. One of the senior technicians, according to multiple sources who were present in the monitoring room that night, broke the heavy silence with a statement that would be repeated in every subsequent briefing and analysis session. That's not a coyote. 3 simple words that summarized what everyone in that room understood instinctively and immediately. Whatever they'd just witnessed on their screens didn't match known wildlife patterns or behavior, didn't move like any animal species native to the Utah desert environment, and most disturbing, didn't behave in any way that fit conventional scientific understanding of how animals interact with human surveillance equipment and technology. The immediate protocol was activated without discussion. Secure all footage from every camera angle, log the precise timestamps down to the second, document every single sensor reading from every monitoring system, cross-reference all data points to build a complete picture, and notify the senior science team immediately regardless of the late hour. This wasn't something that could wait until morning. This required immediate expert analysis. The complete footage from all camera angles has never been publicly released in its entirety. Fragments have appeared in episodes of the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch television series. Still frames have been shown during scientific presentations and conferences. Short clips have been included in documentaries, but the full 23 seconds of continuous footage captured from multiple camera positions with all accompanying sensor data, environmental readings, and audio recordings remains restricted from public viewing. The official explanations for withholding this evidence vary depending on who's asked and when. Ongoing investigations that could be compromised by premature public disclosure, risk of misinterpretation by viewers without scientific training that could fuel unfounded conspiracy theories, concern about potential public panic if the footage was presented without proper scientific context and expert analysis, and perhaps most significantly, complete inability to definitively classify or explain what the cameras actually captured that night. This pattern of selective disclosure and information control isn't unique to this particular incident. Past events at Skinwalker Ranch have followed remarkably similar trajectories over the years. Footage shown only in carefully edited fragments with the most compelling or potential potentially disturbing portions removed, sections deliberately blurred or obscured to prevent viewers from seeing specific details, still frames presented instead of full video sequences to prevent frame-by-frame analysis by curious viewers and independent researchers. The question becomes unavoidable and increasingly difficult to dismiss. Was this footage withheld because researchers genuinely couldn't explain what it showed using conventional scientific frameworks? Or was it withheld because it showed too much? Because the implications of releasing clear, unambiguous footage of an unidentified creature moving through the property with apparent intelligence and awareness would create questions and controversies that nobody in positions of authority or responsibility wanted to manage or address publicly. Dr. Travis Taylor is not someone prone to exaggeration, sensationalism, or making claims beyond what evidence supports. As an aerospace engineer and optical scientist with decades of experience working on highly classified government programs requiring security clearances and rigorous scientific methodology, he approaches every single anomaly with deep skepticism and systematic analysis. His professional reputation, built over years of serious work, depends entirely on measured, careful, evidence-based conclusions, which makes his specific language choices about this incident particularly noteworthy and revealing. He never called it a creature in any public statement or interview, never used emotionally loaded terms like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or Skinwalker in his analysis. Instead, he referred to it consistently and deliberately as an unknown biological anomaly. Technical terminology, clinical description, deliberately neutral phrasing that avoids speculation. He emphasized repeatedly in every discussion that conclusions should be data-driven, not belief-driven or influenced by preconceptions. But here's what matters most and what reveals the significance of this event. In all his careful, meticulously measured statements about the incident, Dr. Taylor never once said it wasn't alive, never suggested it was simply misidentified wildlife that could be easily explained, never proposed a conventional explanation that would close the case and allow everyone to move on. His focus remained laser-focused on the empirical evidence. Multiple independent sensors confirming the same event from different positions, pattern behavior that strongly suggested environmental awareness and possibly intelligence, movement characteristics that appeared purposeful and deliberate rather than instinctive or reactive. In one particularly revealing interview, he made a statement that revealed more than any dramatic claim possibly could. When something reacts to being observed, when it demonstrates clear awareness of surveillance equipment and human presence, when it modifies its behavior based on that awareness, that's precisely when we pay very, very close attention to what we're dealing with. What happened in the minutes following the visual sighting is every bit as disturbing as the sighting itself, perhaps even more so. Approximately 7 minutes after the creature disappeared from all camera views, radiation detectors positioned around the property perimeter registered a measurable spike above baseline levels. Nothing immediately dangerous to human health, but definitely and undeniably elevated above normal background radiation. Temperature sensors strategically placed throughout the monitoring zone recorded a sudden, sharp fluctuation, dropping several degrees Fahrenheit in a highly localized area precisely where the figure had been visible moments before. Multiple pieces of sophisticated monitoring equipment experienced simultaneous interference that affected data collection across different types of systems, not complete failures or total shutdowns that would suggest power problems, but subtle disruptions in normal functioning that degraded measurement accuracy. The troubling pattern that emerged. All these measurable effects occurred after the visual sighting, not before it, as would be expected. Normal wildlife encounters at monitoring stations follow an absolutely predictable sequence that's been documented thousands of times. Animals approach an area searching for food, water, or shelter. Their physical movement triggers motion sensors first. Their body heat registers clearly on thermal imaging cameras. Audio sensors pick up sounds of movement through vegetation, breathing, vocalizations. Visual cameras then confirm species identity through physical characteristics. Sensors always trigger first, providing advance warning before visual confirmation occurs. This incident at Skinwalker Ranch completely reversed that established sequence. Visual confirmation came first, with cameras capturing the creature before any other detection systems registered anything unusual. The figure appeared on screen moving through the monitored zone. Then, only after it had disappeared disappeared from view entirely, the sophisticated equipment began showing unusual and unexplained readings. That fundamental reversal troubled experienced researchers significantly. It suggested strongly that whatever they'd captured on camera didn't behave according to known physical and biological patterns, didn't interact with the environment the way flesh and blood animals predictably do. The folklore surrounding skinwalkers is ancient, specific, and genuinely disturbing when examined in detail. According to traditional Navajo beliefs that have been passed down through generations, skinwalkers are malevolent witches who possess the supernatural ability to transform into animals or take on animal characteristics while somehow maintaining complete human-level intelligence and awareness. They're said to mimic the appearance and behavior of animals and humans with unsettling accuracy, to appear near places where they're actively being observed, discussed, or investigated, to move fluidly between different physical forms with practiced ease. The reported characteristics of skinwalkers match disturbingly well with certain specific aspects of what the surveillance footage actually showed. Upright bipedal posture that transitions smoothly and naturally to quadrupedal movement without awkward adjustment. Sudden appearance and equally sudden disappearance without any detectable sound. Behavior strongly suggesting active awareness of being watched and recorded, as if the entity was consciously choosing to show itself. To be absolutely clear and avoid misrepresentation, the Skinwalker Ranch research team never officially labeled or classified what appeared on their surveillance cameras as a skinwalker according to traditional definition. They avoided that specific terminology very deliberately and consistently. Science demands empirical evidence and testable hypotheses, not reliance on cultural mythology or folklore, regardless of how compelling the parallels might appear. But viewers of the footage, particularly those already familiar with the detailed Navajo legends and traditional stories, immediately made the obvious connection. The behavioral similarities were simply too striking, too specific, too numerous to casually ignore or dismiss. And the property itself, of course, bears the name Skinwalker Ranch specifically because of its extraordinarily long documented history of phenomena that closely matches indigenous descriptions of these entities going back many generations. Whether the creature captured on multiple cameras was actually a skinwalker, according to the precise traditional definition, remains fundamentally unknowable. But the undeniable fact that trained scientists with sophisticated equipment couldn't provide any conventional scientific explanation, that speaks volumes. The questions this incident raises are significantly more disturbing than any definitive answers could possibly be. Why did this particular creature or entity appear only once during continuous monitoring? In literally years of non-stop surveillance, capturing thousands upon thousands of hours of footage showing normal wildlife activity. Why does this specific unknown entity show up for exactly 23 seconds, then never appear again despite constant monitoring? Why specifically during active surveillance with multiple operators watching screens in real time? Was the timing purely coincidental chance, or did it appear specifically and deliberately because sophisticated surveillance systems were actively operating and recording? Why did multiple sensors react measurably after the visual sighting rather than before, as would be expected with normal wildlife? What does that fundamental reversal of detection patterns suggest about its actual physical nature? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, did it know precisely where the cameras were strategically positioned throughout the property? Did it deliberately position itself to be captured on specific camera angles? Past detailed reports from Skinwalker Ranch, documented over decades by multiple independent research teams, describe entities and phenomena that consistently appear to avoid direct illumination from artificial light sources, that demonstrably react to being actively observed by withdrawing from view or significantly altering their behavior patterns, that manifest with notably increased frequency during active scientific experiments, as if somehow drawn by or responding to the investigation itself. This particular creature fits that well-established historical pattern almost perfectly, appearing specifically at night when natural visibility is severely limited and shadows provide concealment, staying deliberately at the extreme edge of camera range rather than moving confidently into well-lit, openly monitored areas, disappearing immediately the precise moment it seemed to recognize it was being recorded by multiple surveillance systems. The behavior strongly suggests intelligence and environmental awareness, suggests consciousness not just of its immediate surroundings, but specifically of human monitoring, capabilities, and surveillance technology, suggests clear intention behind its brief, calculated appearance, rather than random chance. This absolutely wasn't just a random animal wandering accidentally through the property. This surveillance footage doesn't constitute absolute proof of anything supernatural or paranormal in nature. It's definitely not a deliberate hoax, verified independently by multiple sophisticated systems and witnessed directly by credible professionals with scientific training and no motivation to fabricate evidence. But it's also not definitive, irrefutable proof of Bigfoot, skinwalkers, or any other specific cryptid from folklore or legend. What it genuinely represents is an unresolved moment captured in time, documented physical evidence of something unknown appearing at one of America's most intensively studied paranormal locations, something that multiple independent cameras captured from different angles simultaneously, something that triggered sophisticated sensors and monitoring equipment in measurable ways, something that trained scientists and experienced researchers couldn't conventionally explain using established scientific frameworks, and something that's never been seen again anywhere on the property despite years of continuous, comprehensive monitoring following the incident. No official explanation has ever been publicly released or made available. The footage exists in archives, but answers remain elusive.